Hello, Vito. Can you hear me? Hello, Vito.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. You can hear me okay?
Yes, perfect.
Great. The deck looked great. Thank you to Eva for helping with that. It looked wonderful.
My pleasure. So hello to everyone who's dialing into the webinar. We'll be getting started in a couple of minutes. Hello, Mike.
Hi there, Sharon. Can you hear me okay?
Hi. Perfect. Great. Vito is also on the line, and we have a number of people just dialing in now, so we will get going in a couple of minutes.
Okay, brilliant. If there's any issues with, I've had in the last couple of days some Wi-Fi problems where I am. I'm hoping that they're all fixed now. If there's any issues, I'll dial in on the phone.
Okay.
Fingers crossed. Should be fine.
Okay. So Mike and Vito, just for us, for sound quality, when we're not talking, we're the only ones that aren't on mute. So if we can mute ourselves when we're not talking, that will help with the sound quality.
Okay.
No problem.
Hello, everyone who's dialing in and joining. Thank you so much. We'll give it another minute or two for everyone to join us, and we'll get started. Great. Welcome everyone to today's webinar. Thrilled to have all of you on the line. Many more people are dialing in, and we'll get started to keep on time. So I am Sharon Bly, and I'm Director of Health and Wellness here at the Consumer Goods Forum. So welcome to today's webinar on digitally enabling healthier lives with the Health and Wellness Digital Framework. I hope you all have your copy of the framework, and if not, we will share it with you after today's webinar. So like everything at the CGF, we couldn't do this without the great partnerships that we have with members of the Consumer Goods Forum, and we developed this digital framework with the Health and Wellness Steering Committee and a number of chief digital officers, along with our key partner, Capgemini. And today, Mike and Vito are going to be bringing us through the insights on the framework that we developed. And you know, the context behind that and what we see as some of the future paths for this work going forward. So I really would encourage you to ask questions to the two experts, Mike and Vito, that we have on today's call, and make the most of our time with them. So you have two ways of asking questions. Don't hesitate to send me an email during the webinar to s.bligh@theconsumergoodsforum.com, or if you have questions after the webinar that come to mind once you've heard from Vito and Mike, don't hesitate to send me an email, and we will make sure that we get back to each and every one of you. You also have the panel on the right-hand side of your screen where you have the chat box. So don't hesitate to send your questions, and at the end of the webinar, we'll make sure that we have time for those questions with Mike and Vito. So before I hand you over to Capgemini, just in 2 minutes, a very quick overview for those of you who might not be familiar with us, who we are, the Consumer Goods Forum. Many of you on the call today are our members. There are 400 of you across 70 countries, employing 10 million people. We're governed by a board of directors of over 50, we now have 54 CEOs, retailers and manufacturers all over the globe. And we're really driven by our members who help us to build all of the thought leadership across a number of priority areas that have been identified by the CEOs. My area is health and wellness, which we'll focus on today, but we have similar groups working on environmental sustainability, social sustainability, product safety, both food and non-food, and the end-to-end value chain and standards. And we're doing all of this to have positive impact on these global agendas, to work on business efficiencies, and of course all of this we share back the knowledge and the best practices with the members of the CGF and beyond. So for health and wellness itself, we have a clear mandate from the board of directors of the Consumer Goods Forum on the priority of this topic, and really the strategic priorities that we have to drive in this area, in particular what we can do in our own environment, so the retail environment, what we can do with our own employees, and of course what we can do in the digital environment. And this was one of the objectives that the Health and Wellness Steering Committee really took on board, and our steering committee is co-chaired by Walmart and Danone, and you can see here on your screen the real belief that we have from the CEOs of those companies and far beyond into our work in the space of health and wellness, and how we can use digital as a channel to really nudge consumers towards healthier practices. So what we decided to do with the Health and Wellness Steering Committee, a group of about 30 global executives working on health around the globe, we really wanted to understand the role that digital technology can play, and what was happening out there and what's happening in this space. We wanted to give a framework and guidance and a step-by-step process to our members, all of whom are either at a level of maturity in this development or at the development phase on what you're doing in the digital space. So we really wanted to look at steps on how any of our members can move their goals forward in the space of digital development. So we developed with the steering committee and a number of chief digital officers this playbook on how all of our members around the world could really promote healthier lives of consumers through the channel of digital. And if you click here on the screen, you can download your digital copy of the report, or don't hesitate to contact me and I'll send you through a version after today's webinar. So really the development of this framework, we worked very closely with Capgemini, getting their thought leadership on board, along with the thought leadership from all of our member companies. And we really wanted to link this framework directly to our global strategy on health and wellness and understand, what are some of the quick wins, where can we focus, and what are the areas where we need to drive some longer term investment. Mike will bring you through the different steps that we looked at and that you can take to really drive your health and wellness goals and strategies through digital. But it's not a finalized journey. We have shared this framework, but Capgemini will be working with the steering committee, really looking at the development of what we can do in some of our local projects that we have going on around the world, and how we can test and learn some of these steps that we have outlined in the digital framework. So with that as a context setting, I'll hand you over to Mike, who'll bring you through the digital framework and how we approach that. Mike, over to you.
Okay, great, thank you. So on the next slide, what you'll see is the context really around the digital framework that we've developed, and that context is about how we can use digital to help drive the behavioural change that the health and wellness pillar is trying to promote in order to support consumers and shoppers to lead healthier lives. And so we looked at the research, a raft of different research available in the marketplace, and really it comes down to, actually still on that previous slide, three key dimensions around how you drive behavioural change. The first being around the capability. So, do people have the ability to make healthier choices? Do they have the information? Do they have the means to lead healthier lives? Then it's around the motivation. How can we support people to understand the benefits and promote the healthier decisions? And then finally, the opportunity. Are we prompting people in the right at the right moments, and are we making those those choices available to them? So we looked at those three dimensions and really built the framework around that behavioural change that we're seeking to drive. On the next slide, talks through the key steps within the framework, and so this is intended to be a framework that you can use to support any health and wellness goal, and therefore it's one that has a sort of a logical sequence of steps to get you from that goal to a series of prioritized investments that you might be able to track within your initiative, both as a collaboration, an industry-wide collaboration, and also as individual organizations seeking to play your part in this pursuit. So the first step is really being clear on the goal, the measures, and whose behavior we're really trying to influence, and whether or not you can, through the identification of personas, you can really target specific groups that the initiative is there to support. And we'll come on to an example to bring all this to life, but if that's the first piece, what are we trying to achieve and for whom? Then the second step is where we've got some inspirational material around the digital enablers that might be able to influence behaviour in line with that goal. And so for this, we've got and this is something that we'll need to keep live and evolve, but it has almost a menu of different digital investments that you could make with some pros and cons around those. What kind of behavioural change can they support, and some examples. So having reviewed those, and we move to step 3, which says, okay, with the goals in mind and with an understanding of those different digital investments, what could the journey look like for the different personas that we've identified in order to drive the right choices around the behavioural change and how digital can support. We finally, in terms of the process of design, we then map those enablers to make sure that we've got a good balance across those three dimensions of the capability, the motivation, and the opportunity in support of behavioural change. And that's really to make sure that we aren't too skewed in terms of our focus. And then in step 5, we look at where could those enablers require collaboration. So where do perhaps retailers and consumer goods companies need to collaborate to maximise the impact, or indeed across retailers or across CPGs, working with either local health authorities or other organisations. Where does the industry need to collaborate to take these initiatives forward, so that in the final step we can put in place the right tracking and governance around the overall initiative to move towards the goal. So those are the steps. Bringing it to life, we'll just tick through some examples, so that hopefully that will help with the logic. So step 1 is around defining those goals, measures, and the target personas. So on this chart, you can see that one of the initiatives, this is one in the UK, has a specific focus around adult and childhood obesity. And so if we look at that goal and think, how can we improve the healthier choices of our target personas, or target consumers, around improving the health of their basket, their shopping basket. And so with a view potentially to building a healthy basket index where you can support at-risk groups to make healthier choices. So there's a goal around obesity, there's some measures around how we could try and do that, and then looking at the personas, here we've given you a couple of examples. So Julia, I just won't go through one. She's in her early 30s, she's a young mum, she's quite digitally savvy, so she's well connected with social and mobile, etc. But she's cash poor and time poor, because she's got a couple of young kids and really needs to think through how she can make her budget work for her. She wants to make healthier choices and for her, for the benefit of her children, but sometimes she feels that on her budget and with her time constraints, she finds that hard. So as an example, this would be the kind of logic that we would advocate going through, so that you can put the consumer at the heart of your initiative. Now, typically, to reach some kind of scale, we would advocate that getting towards 3, 4, even better 5 personas for an initiative will help you, think through what kind of scale can you achieve, as well as being specific to meet the needs of different personas. So if we then move to the next step, which is really around the inspiration that you can get around some different digital enablers. So we've listed some here. They're just in alphabetical order, all the way from biometric readers through to loyalty programs, through to RFID, voice assistants like Amazon Alexa. There's a list of different potential digital enablers there. And as I say, these should grow and evolve over time as the industry continues to innovate. And what we looked at was, how do these digital enablers provide either information or advice? How can they support engaging with people in a really around perhaps building services around people's choices, as well as supporting from a community perspective, so engaging the community either through social influencers or more broadly in the location around our target personas. And so we looked at those and we've built for each of these, and it's in the pack if you download it, a series of one-pagers that kind of share some top tips and some case studies around how these different enablers can be used. If we then go to the third step, then if we bring that to life through a journey, so this is the journey for Julia, and it takes you through the steps of what's the trigger that sparks awareness around making healthier choices. How do we support her with in the consideration phase, all the way through purchase, and then support afterwards to reinforce and maintain some of those behaviours. And so the example here is that Julia sees an entry on her Facebook feed about a new meal planning app that her local supermarket has launched, and it's around helping to plan meals in a way that can drive, healthier choices, healthier menu for her and her family. And so it was recommended by one of her friends, and hence it's appeared on her Facebook page. And you can imagine, in terms of that, the kind of capabilities that you might need, leveraging social influencers, as well as supporting through a mobile app where she could launch off the Facebook page into downloading that app and getting some useful information. So at the next stage, then she downloads the app. She enters her details. There's various filters and questionnaire that can help her set the parameters of what she's trying to achieve for her family, and she gains some confidence because she sees that there's an index built into that app around the definition of healthy, which has been approved by the local health authority. In this case, it's National Health Service in England, and so she sees some really positive ratings and reviews on the app. And so she starts to put her own priorities into that app and links it with her e-commerce basket, so that when she makes those choices and looks at those recipe ideas, it immediately populates into her basket. So that leads into purchase. She makes the purchase. She's planning her meals. She can see what the balance is between health and price in terms of making some better choices, swapping some of her typical items in order to improve her healthy index score. And she gets helpful alerts as new recipes or ideas come along, where she can improve on the choices that she's making for her family, both in terms of the interesting meals, but importantly, interesting meals that meet her health objectives. And when she goes on, to her local store, she gets the same kind of information and advice, and she feels the service is as good as it is online. There's kiosks available for her to, get her app up in the store, or there's advice from assistants in the store, the staff in the store that are, well up to speed on the app and the options that are available. And so she can track through that app in the final stage the support, how she's going in terms of meeting her needs, and she receives some rewards to help motivate her to continue on the journey that she has set for herself. Building healthy purchases into the loyalty scheme of the retailer. So you can see in terms of this journey, it's an end-to-end journey. It's trying to influence the behaviour, both in terms of the capability, so giving her the right information, the motivation through social influencers, through the index and seeing how you can achieve your goals, as well as through promoting the right choices and giving her the opportunity to do that. If we move to the next one, I won't go through this this slide in detail. It's the same analogy. This is a different journey for Peter. It drives a different set of digital choices, but the logic and the flow is exactly the same. In this instance, Peter, the trigger for Peter is about he's at risk from diabetes. He's prompted by his doctor to go and get some information at the NHS website, which has the information around the Healthy Basket Index, and through that trigger, he then is able to understand, what are some of the choices that he can make, and that's mirrored by, in his local retailer, where the Healthy Basket Index is promoted and where he can get the support he needs to make those choices. So that's step 3. If we move then to step 4, what we seek to do is take each of those enablers and then map them onto what we're calling the health and wellness compass. So at the heart of the compass is the goal and the measures, and then around it we've got 3 segments: the opportunity, the motivation, and the capability. And there are some concentric circles in the middle around our ability to provide the right information, the right engagement, and the right community and support to helping people with those choices. So the purpose of this is to map the digital enablers that you've chosen onto the framework to ensure balance, that the initiatives that you're coming up with are really addressing those different drivers of behavioural change. And so hopefully this will trigger some good reinforcement of the journey and the choices that you've made, but it may prompt new ideas. How can we better support in terms of providing motivation? How can we better support in terms of ensuring that the opportunity is really there for the end consumer to make those choices? Once you've been through that step, then the fifth and sixth steps really of the framework are to look at where to drive these initiatives. Do you need industry collaboration, as I mentioned, and how can we put in place the right tracking at the initiative level to manage progress against those goals? In this case, of reducing adult and childhood obesity. What are the lead indicators, and what are some of the key lag indicators that would drive success? So that's a quick walkthrough of the framework and how we see it being used. If we move to the next slide, I think Vito, you're going to give some examples that we've seen in the market of how others have used it, and then I think we'll be at a good point to sort of take some questions and hopefully have a discussion.
Great, yeah, thank you, Mike, and hello everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to share this this information and this framework with you. What I wanted to tell you about was some of the real life examples of how the framework has been animated in retailers around the world. And all of the examples you see on the screen are elaborated on in some detail in the report that Sharon sort of directed you to at the beginning through that QR code. So I encourage you to read the report, but I did want to maybe take you through just a couple examples that you see on the screen, because I think it will help provide context to some of the framework details that Mike just shared. Really, the first one I'll highlight is Migros. Migros is as some of you may know, is a very large, one of the largest supermarket chains in Turkey. And Migros started a well-being journey with its customers that really at the heart of it was a mobile app. And this was an app that, if you were in the store and you were conducting your shopping or creating a shopping list, the app would be able to evaluate the items that you put in your basket against the Ministry of Health's recommended daily energy breakdown or daily diet breakdown, and according to the nutrition recommended for the country of Turkey, for example. And what it would do is that based on your habits of what you were putting in your cart or on your shopping list, it would actually make a recommendation. It would make a comparison to what you ideally should be consuming and make recommendations for other products or items that would further enhance your well-being. So how could the app would essentially recommend how your purchasing habits could be enhanced to be more in line with a healthy lifestyle. And of course, what this means for the retailer, for Migros, is knowing that the customer is maybe lacking in one area in terms of their nutritional consumption, they could then serve up special discounts to encourage the purchase of other items that help fulfill the customer's alignment to recommended daily nutritional values. And so that's just one example of where a digital enabler is helping create awareness in customers of how they can be closer to leading a healthier life, but also for a retailer, it signals an opportunity to actually bring about a behavioral change in customers, which they can offer discounts within the store. So that's one example. The other one I'll highlight is the Spoon Guru example you can see on the screen. And again, all of these examples are highlighted in the report if you want to read about them in more detail. But the Spoon Guru example it's an app. It's an app that you can download in either the iOS or Android app stores in different countries around the world. And what it does is, if you're a customer who has unique food preferences. Perhaps you have a food allergy, or perhaps you have certain restrictions in your diet. Spoon Guru allows for an artificial intelligence app to be able to guide you on what products align with your nutritional restrictions. So if you have a gluten allergy, what are some of the recommendations when you're standing in a store that a product that you should buy that align with your gluten allergy, or if you have celiac disease, for example. And so Spoon Guru is another example of an enabler that essentially can be personalized to the customer's individual and personal needs, but then provides guidance to them on how and where they should buy food that will help ensure that they remain healthy and their well-being. And, you know, we had an opportunity with Spoon Guru just a couple of weeks ago to present this in New York. The reality is that a lot of customers are finding this more and more relevant to their shopping habits now because of, you know, everyone has so many more food restrictions that they're either trying to fulfill either by choice or by the necessity of their health. So I'll pause there. I think I'll just focus on two examples between Spoon Guru and Migros, but perhaps you might have questions or dialogue as we move forward.
Super. Thank you so much, Vito and Mike. And as mentioned, you can find the full report that goes, of course, into a lot more detail. And there's a whole appendix of enablers in great detail in the report. So I would encourage you to go onto the website and take a look at the report and share with your colleagues. And of course, where you can see all of our emails here on the screen. We're very happy to take any questions now or after today's webinar. So again, if you want to just drop me a quick note with a question or on the chat box, we will give you a moment or two to get your questions through, and we're very happy to take those questions now. I've just had a first one that's come in. Mike or Vito, if you could comment on where do you see the greatest need for industry collaboration? And this has been mentioned, and of course, this is the whole mindset of what we're trying to do and using digital as an enabler. Where do you see the greatest need for industry collaboration in this space?
Yeah, Sharon, perhaps I'll take that one. So I think there's a few areas. Firstly, obviously, in terms of setting the goals and the measures for your initiative, I think that there's a real value in collaboration at that stage to work with perhaps the local health authorities, other local organisations, as well as having a cross industry, so consumer goods and retailer point of view on what the goal is and how measurement of that goal will be undertaken. I think the value of that is in galvanizing the most number of stakeholders to have the biggest possible impact and make sure that it's aligned with the needs of the local consumers. And so that would be the first. I think then looking at ways to coordinate either activity plans or campaign calendars in order to be able to amplify the message and increase the impact. So you can imagine in some of these examples, that we shared earlier, where if people are being prompted on different retailer sites or through information on the product or through their local doctor or wherever it is, where they're maximizing the number of triggers which can drive people towards the achievement of the goals that you're seeking in your initiative. I think that then really aligning on your activity plans, I think can help to maximize some of that reach and impact. You may have some specific needs where if you're looking at defining some standards, So, whether it be the Migros example, collaborating, their collaboration was to make sure they were using the national, definition of what good nutrition means for Turkish consumers. So, collaborating at that stage, and collaborating around making sure that the information and the inspiration that's available to shoppers and consumers is there, and that clearly will be a collaboration between the consumer goods companies who know what's in their products, what the benefits of their products are, at great detail, and the retailers who can help with getting that message across and driving conversion. So those are just some of the thoughts. I mean, clearly on top of that, there are there's going to be a huge opportunity for individual organizations to think about how they would leverage digital to achieve the behavioral change that they would want to, and in our view, there will be great commercial impact as you seek to meet the inherent needs of your own customers, but there's clear benefit in collaboration at the same time.
Thank you. The next questions come in terms of healthier living. How do you think wearables will come to impact people's lives?
I think there's a huge potential opportunity around wearables or other IoT style devices. Again, really, in terms of providing triggers for people. Ultimately, changing behaviour comes down to people having the right prompts, the right support, the right information to be able to make better choices in line with their own personal goals. And so whether that be wearables that are helping you to understand your levels of activity, whether it be wearables that are helping to detect your medical state, could be heart rate, could be blood pressure, could be a raft of different triggers really that can support people to think about the choices that they make with the right information and do that in a timely way. And I think if you extend wearables to thinking about IoT and broader signals, well then we know what the potential of smart devices are, smart fridges, etc. that could also add to that. Sorry, Vito.
I just wanted to add, sorry, Mike, to interrupt. I wanted to add that there is an example in the report. Welcome everyone to read it, around Walgreens and their balanced rewards program in the United States, where consumers can connect their wearable devices to their Walgreens account, and it translates into points. If they have healthy behaviors like walking or running for a certain amount of time each day, or getting the right amount of sleep, that behavior that the consumer exhibits translates into rewards at Walgreens, which ultimately leads to things that they can use for products in the store. So wearables is a huge, as Mike said, it's a huge opportunity, I think, for a lot of retailers today.
Great, thank you. The next question that's come in are there ways to create communities by segment? For example, connecting young mums around health and wellness.
Absolutely. I think in one way there's potential to collaborate with other organizations. So there are organizations out there that are providing advice and support to specific community groups. So I mean, maybe active in your market, but certainly in a number of geographies around the world, there are social networks like Mumsnet, which are specifically designed for mums to share information, advice, get support, and there's curated information on those sites as well. So thinking about your partnership strategies is one way to think about getting to specific communities if there are existing vehicles that you can use, but at the same time leveraging your own either your own consumer data to be able to drive your own segmentation and reach groups based upon your knowledge. So that's using the data that you have around, either because if you're a retailer and you've got the transactional data, or you've got a loyalty card, or you can start to, or you've got some proprietary data, or that you can start to segment and target those consumers with the advice and the support that's going to best meet their needs, or at the same time, thinking about how you can use social media, and using external data to be able to promote the right messages and get those messages to the right people. I think in terms of that level of personalization and engagement, there's great opportunity through data and great opportunity through partners.
Thank you. The next question's come in. Do you have any tips, Mike, on assessing the environment people are in, the technology that they have access to, and how to best reach them based on the context in that moment of need? So any tips on assessing the environment that people are in, the tech they have access to, and how to best reach them based on the context in that moment of need?
So I think one of the foundations for that is really understanding two things. So understanding the target personas that you're trying to reach, and really thinking hard about the kind of journey that you can support with that persona. So what do I mean by that? In our example, we had Julia as a young mum, quite digitally savvy. So thinking, it's clear that she's someone who's likely to be able to do e-commerce. She's going to be on social media sites and getting recommendations. So you can, thinking about the journey that she's likely to go on in terms of thinking, and thinking more beyond the shopping experience, but thinking about everything that informs and shapes that shopping experience. So the kind of advice that she's getting, the kind of research that she's doing, as well as those in-store or online moments around the actual shopping journey. But then we had another persona, that's not so digitally savvy, perhaps slightly older demographic, or perhaps just not able to afford to own the sort of devices that Julia has. So really thinking about them and, okay, what journey is it like? Are we going to support there? Like maybe it's more of an in-store journey, and how can you use the prompts in store, the signage or the store staff to get the message across, and doing that in a joined up way with the other activities that you're doing. So I think the foundations of it are around the personas that you're targeting, really understanding those segments, their level of digital enablement, as well as then really getting some clarity on the kind of journey that they go on and where you can best support them through that journey.
Thank you. Another question that's just come in: how are healthier choices and healthy life operationalized, and which nutrient profile models are used, and are these coherent across the digital environment? So that's a big question.
Yeah. So I guess how are these things operationalized? I mean, it's going to be different to your different journeys, and I think one thing to say up front is that the intent of this framework is that we should be able to think about almost any health and wellness goal. So it could be that it's around providing support with diabetes. It could be around alcoholism. It could be around helping people stop smoking. It could be around obesity. A whole raft of different mental health. I mean, for people to think about what the right goal of their initiative is. And so in that sense, quite how it's operationalized in terms of supporting the different choices. It could be about purchase decisions, or it could be around helping them to be more active, or helping them to abstain from certain purchases. So I think number one is obviously the goal will drive your views on what's required to operationalize it. I think to the second point, if it is in the nutritional space, then I think that is one of the challenges that we all face as consumers, and that the industry faces, is that there are depending on the geography, there are different there is different levels to which there are accepted nutritional information, or well-established models for supporting people with their with their specific needs. And so in that sense, looking for partners that are accredited, that maybe it is local health authorities, maybe it is well-established organizations, non-for-profit organizations, to think about, well, what models can you use in order to give the consumer confidence that the advice that you're giving is well grounded and is not is not company specific, but actually it's consumer centric. And then once you've got that framework, then really it's down to the quality of information that we as an industry can provide around our products, in order to help people to create those linkages between their goals and the purchases they make and the products that we are putting in front of them.
Thank you. Next question: have you used the same approach to promote employee health and wellness internal to an organization?
So we've used so at the heart of this approach really is the notion of measurable goals targeted to specific personas, and then thinking about the journeys and how you can influence those journeys. So we've used this we've used this to look at the employee journey. We've used it in our own organisation, particularly looking at diversity and active inclusion. So one of our core beliefs is around trying to promote active inclusion, and so we've looked at the different triggers within recruitment, training, performance management, where we can look at those journeys and see where are the moments when active inclusion can be promoted, and how can we influence behaviour at each of those moments. And so that's one example of where we've used this kind of model, and really it comes down to that fundamental logic between goals, the people and the journeys that they go on, and how you can support those moments of truth through that journey.
Super. Thank you so much, Mike and Vito. We've just come up to our 45 minutes. Thank you so much, everyone, for all of the questions. If anything does come to mind and you want to reach out to any of us, our emails are on the screen, and we're also very happy to follow up with you afterwards, so that this is a journey. We did publish the framework at the end of next year, but the thought leadership and the thinking will continue on this as we continue to operationalize it. So more to come from this space, and thanks very much for your time today. Thank you, everyone.